Good morning, my friend. How are you today?
Good morning, Joe. I'm doing good. Good. Just got back from a mushroom ceremony this weekend.
Nice. How was it?
It was great. It was really just nurturing to spend time with like a really good group of people.
Yeah,
Almost everybody in the group I had already shared a ceremony with before.
nice. So you were
And
comfortable.
yeah, it was really comfortable and just it was just really great. Like we just people had just such great energy and it made all the difference in the world. It was amazing.
Well, that sounds really fun. I love how many plant ceremonies you do. Now, are these ceremonies because you have an interest in facilitating them yourself, or are you just doing them just because there's something that you enjoy?
Yeah, it is something. It is always a learning opportunity for me, and yes, it's because I want to facilitate these. So I'm going through this process just to understand the facilitating, but also just the experience itself. Because I feel like that having that personal experience is just that's going to help me a lot going forward.
Right, right. Do you pay attention when people like struggle or have challenges or questions to see how the facilitator handles it?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I do. And it's actually truly like when I was in it, I'm like, it's not actually that complicated.
Right.
It's a matter of being able to hold space for them and what that looks like and having the tools available to do that for people. So yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I definitely look forward to my first ceremony sometime, whenever that will be. So
Yeah. How
excellent.
about you? What were you up to?
God, I'm trying to think. What did I do this weekend? I'm not sure what I did. I don't really remember, but I do know that I get bored with the same grocery store, right? Because I have like two by me. Actually, there's
Hmm.
three. And Fred Meyer, which is the local grocery store,
Hmm.
they are not all made the same. And the ones that are located in like the Hawthorne district and, those sort of more, a little bit more, maybe for what are the people that called that visit cities?
Bougie. Tourists, like.
Tourists, like
Hmm.
touristy or
Hmm.
right, yes, bougie, yes.
Hmm.
The they are not made the same. So because of that, this weekend I needed to pick up some groceries, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the Hawthorne,
Hmm.
Fred Meyer, and oh my god, like the cheese and the wine section and the deli section and the fruit section and just the foods that they have on the shelf, and then they have whole like 6, 7, 8 rows of organic. Like here or in Michigan, they had like
Uh-huh.
one section of organic stuff, not here.
Yeah.
So it really is. And I've always been a lover of like specialty shops,
Hmm.
little meat markets and little places that have, imported jars and pots and sauces and all those things and cheeses and wine. And I love those sorts of places. But this it's nothing like here. So
Yeah, around me we have Sprouts, and then I have to go pretty far out for a Whole Foods. Every once in a while, when I'm around a Whole Foods, I will go in there just because they always have extra things that I just can't get anywhere else.
right.
I used to love the Whole Foods used to have the like buffet where
Yeah.
you like serve yourself it's
Hmm.
sold by the pound or whatever. And I used to love that when I'd go out
Hmm.
into Palm Desert. That's where I would go get lunch. And then quarantine and COVID happened and they don't have it anymore
They
because
took it from
obviously.
us. They took
Yeah,
it.
and it
Mhm.
sucks. I'm like, I miss it so much.
Yep. Yep. But in Michigan, there's a store called Better Health, and they had oh my God, they had the best buffet every day. And their salmon is nothing like I've ever tasted before. I haven't found it anyplace else. But yeah, so hopefully those will come back, as people start to get vaxxed, which I say with a grunt and a snarl, not a snarl, but a snark. um, those things will start to come back. But I mean, they are slowly coming back. I did confirm tickets October 16th. So I'm super excited there's a local event here called the Oddities. It's like a little mini, like, show or convention
Uh-huh.
about like oddities and paranormal and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that. So
Oh, that
I'm
sounds fun.
hoping that doesn't get canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun. What do we have anything coming up? What's going on? What's on the events calendar for us?
So we have the workshop for empaths is coming up. That's September 11th.
Yep, there's still time to register for that up until the day before.
So with those, it's always the aim with those is always to keep them affordable so that people can join and come and learn.
Hmm.
Um, do you have a theme for this one?
The workshop for empaths?
Mm-hmm.
Nope, it's always the same. It teaches you how to identify what type of empath you are, how to manage those empathic abilities, how to sort of set them up so that it helps develop your intuitive abilities at the same time. And then we talk about shielding versus, not shielding. We talk about
Uh-huh.
some crystals. We talk about boundaries and all that stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then we do still have Journey the Wild. So that is our plant medicine retreat, and that is November 5th through 7th and taking place in Idlewild, California. We do have a few more spots open for that.
Yeah. And we will also clarify the airport to use for that one because I think I had that wrong. So if I've communicated that to anybody, know that we'll send out a communication, or I'll send out a communication clarifying the airport to use.
Yeah. I had listed there's several airports you can use to get into this area. So I had put it all in. It is in there. It's all
It's in the
on their website.
oh, on our website. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the information guide. So, okay, good. Wonderful.
Oh,
Yay.
okay. Okay. Yeah, it's all in there. And we do have to finalize the meal plan because I have some really good ideas. I want to do some
Mm,
raw cheesecakes.
nice. Very nice. Very nice. All
All
right.
right. What are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to dive into the lore of the succubi, which also sort of translates into astral travel and sleep paralysis. So you're going to see how all of that ties together once I have started weaving this story here. So,
Okay. All right.
all right. So the idea of the succubus and the incubus, that's dated as far back as 2400 BC in Mesopotamia, which I thought that was so cool. Like, wow. It was believed that a creature in female form, previously called a Lilu, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right,
Hmm.
would erotically seduce men and women in their dreams. However, the actual title of succubus, which is Latin for to lie beneath, and incubus, which is the male version, means to lie on top. Those titles weren't applied to these mythical creatures until medieval times.
Hmm.
All right. So, and then the basic description of a succubus or an incubus, it remained the same in the early years, that they were gargoyle like with wings and tails and horns and scaly skin, which, you're not invited into my bedroom. Let's just set let any succubi or incubi out there know. If you look like that, you're not coming into my bedroom. But in the 18th century, its description sort of evolved into a more human like image. So there's lots of myth and lore surrounding it. So we'll start with succubi. Okay, succubus, succubi. They are
Hmm.
powerful female creatures who use their sexuality to appear through the dreams of victims, typically men.
Mhm.
And they then seduce and prey on these victims by slowly draining their souls with each encounter, which, I mean, wow. Um, the victims described a feeling of somebody sitting on their chest or their pelvic area. And then when they woke up, they would feel drained, like they had this terrifying erotic dream the night before.
Mhm.
Um, so myth tells us that the succubi, they used manipulation and psychic abilities to overcome and seduce their prey, and we're going to talk about some of those in a minute, and they're really wow. But what they did was they fed from the victim's soul, and then they kept returning night after night until it had been completely consumed. I, I just the whole idea of the succubi and the succubus and these night visions and terrors is, it's pretty terrifying. All right. So throughout the years, all of the myth and the lore that surrounded these creatures bestowed them with some pretty powerful abilities.
Mm.
So there was called the kiss of death, which was the ability to sort of steal that life force energy via a kiss, which usually resulted in the death. If the succubus was a novice, apparently over time they could learn to control that.
Uh-huh.
They had super stamina. They had super healing, so they could fully heal from any wounds, by how? Well, having sexual intercourse and then stealing the life force energy of their victim.
Hmm.
And then they also had the ability to appear in dreams in order to seduce. So it wasn't just, which is a little bit is a little bit weird, right? Like these people were, quote unquote, were they dreaming or weren't they? But they also could appear in the dreams.
Mm.
And then they had the ability to shapeshift, changing. They could change their outer appearance to match what an individual thought of as beautiful. It just made them easier to tempt them. Which, I mean, if they're holding them down and sitting on their chest, I don't know where the tempt comes in, because it doesn't sound like they're given an opportunity, right?
There's no opportunity to consent.
There's no consent, and no means no. All right. So now the male version, the incubus, the incubus is the male creature who would have sexual intercourse with sleeping women. Okay. Now, this is the cool thing. Incubi were believed to have the ability to father children, resulting in a half human offspring called a cambion. And the most famous cambion is Merlin the Wizard, who was from King Arthur legend, who was supposedly sired by an incubus,
Huh.
from whom he received his magical abilities. Okay,
Huh.
now when I reached out to Merlin for comment, his PR team did not return my calls, so we have no way to verify that. Yo, Merlin, this true? Who knows, right? We don't know if that's true or not, but it's a
Would he
pretty
even
cool story.
know? I mean, he wasn't there either. You know what I mean?
Merlin, how would you really know? I mean,
No.
was there child support being paid? I'm gonna bet no, right? All right. So the real story behind all of this is that both succubi and incubi are the products of superstitions that were
Mhm.
most likely efforts to explain what naturally occurs during sleep, which is nightmares. We all have those. We all have sexual dreams. We all have sleep paralysis, and some of us have night terrors. So succubi and incubi may just have been attempts to explain away late night assaults on women, by
Mm.
relatives, clergy, etc.
Of
Because,
course.
because it's way easier to attribute these attacks to the supernatural than to admit that they came from a person in a position of trust, right?
Mhm.
Especially the clergy, which I don't put it past them, because
Mhm.
I mean, you know,
Yep. No, I mean, they have a pretty solid track record of being sexual abusers now,
I
so
mean, especially now. I don't know why they just don't. Here we go on a tangent. I don't know why they just don't let these men have sex. Just who cares, right? Have wives. It's dumb, because if not, they're taking those sexual urges out on children and
yeah.
children.
You
So,
don't hear this widespread issue with rabbis because
nope.
rabbis can have wives. Like,
Yeah,
hello.
the whole thing is dumb.
Yeah.
All right.
Stupid.
So, real or myth? Is it? Are they real? Are succubi real? So if people say yes, then we give any credence to the beliefs of other ancient cultures, right? Because it's not just medieval, which
Hmm.
isn't really a culture, but so in Islamic superstition, there's a similar creature called the Karina. Okay. In ancient Middle Eastern cultures, Lilith was the creature's name.
Mm.
Newfoundland comes the tale of the old hag, a hideous witch who pins down sleepers by sitting on their chest. We have Japanese folklore, which gives us the Kana Shibari. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's the fate of the cursed who have been magically tied up in their sleep by evil spirits.
Mm.
And then in Old Norse mythology, the Mara, this is my favorite one. The Mara is a malevolent spirit who straddles the body of the sleeper as if they're riding a horse, then tries to strangle them. That's not why it's my favorite. Why it's my favorite is because Mara is the origin of the English word nightmare. Isn't
Oh,
that cool? I was like,
yeah. That's right. Okay, nightmare, mare like a horse. I
mm-hmm,
get it. I get it.
mm-hmm. I love that. I want to do a whole episode on word origins because it's just freaking cool.
I love that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because
Mhm.
I always said that if I had to pick another career or pick something over, I would have probably been a linguist because I
Yes.
love that.
It's
Yeah.
so cool. It's so cool. I was introduced to that in my favorite all-time movie, My Fair Lady, where
Mm.
Professor Higgins, or I don't know, was it? Yeah, it was Professor Higgins. I was going to say his little counterpart too.
Yeah, and I learned a lot when I took German. I realized there's so, all these word origins that we use in English because it is Germanic language, but there's so many things that we use today that are actual German words,
Yep.
like when cities that end in heim
Mm-hmm.
or berg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those that's a German word. So yeah, I love that. Love
Yep.
making that
Yep.
connection.
I just posted a 8 types of love meme on all the
Mm,
socials, and philia is a type of love, but it's also the foundational word for Philadelphia, and
mm,
that is philia is brotherly love. Like so,
yeah.
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Succubi and incubi are basically believed to be pure folklore by modern day physicians and medical professionals.
Mhm.
They have been treating patients suffering from these night terrors by way of course antipsychotic medications, even though many sufferers haven't shown any damn signs of illness or physical disabilities, right? Throw a drug
Mm,
at it. Don't get me
yeah.
started. So, some professionals also believe that these attacks are actually vivid dreams that occur during sleep paralysis, which is a condition that's even more common than the incubus phenomenon.
Mm, mm,
Okay, so now we're going from lore into science.
yeah.
All right, so sleep paralysis. Let's talk about this. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis?
When I was small, but not in the way of like it traumatized me forever. I know I've
Right,
experienced it. I know I've experienced it
right.
when I'm trying to wake up and I'm like, just like I feel a little bit stuck,
Yeah.
but that's about it. Not I've heard some really hard stories.
Yeah. Like I did, and I get into that a little bit later. I did, and I was like, okay, no more. We're done.
Mhm.
So, sleep paralysis. It happens when a person is either falling asleep or waking up. This is when it's most common.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is that during REM sleep, REM, which is the period when a person typically dreams, the body's muscles are relaxed to the level of paralysis. Because if we weren't paralyzed, we would act out our dreams and then potentially endanger ourselves.
Okay.
But sometimes REM can extend into waking consciousness when our bodies become immobile, right? Or but our brains experience the imagery of our dreams.
Okay.
All right. So now there is a it's called something. The phenomenon of waking up during REM is complete when you're completely unable to move is called sleep paralysis.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the science. We love to do that.
Yeah.
So, what causes that sleep paralysis is When our GABA A and GABA B receptors that regulate the body's muscle tone, they combine with glycine, which is in amino acid. And
Hmm.
then when those two combine, it switches off our voluntary muscles during REM sleep.
Okay.
All right, now, normally they switch back on before we wake up. But if we wake up during REM and the GABA and glycine sort of keep hold of us, then the
Mm.
result is dreaming while awake or sleep paralysis. So there's really, I mean, it makes a lot more sense than demon like creatures sitting on your pelvis. But it's still, if you've ever had a night terror or sleep paralysis and you're dreaming, I mean, your brain is going to say, "What's happening? I must be." It's going to go to the most logical thing, which of
Yeah.
course is a demon holding you down. I mean, makes sense to me. Seems legit. All right, but across cultures, that strange sort of sensation of
Hmm.
sleep paralysis has it sort of brought about some pretty vivid descriptions. It's not unique to like one specific area, demographic, culture, race, whatever.
Hmm.
And it's been reported for thousands of years as encounters with sexual creatures and beasts and ghosts. So you can
Hmm.
see how the two sort of combine.
Yeah.
And even though these reports differ by culture, the encounters are really similar.
Yeah.
We've got in 1664, a Dutch physician published a case history of a woman with sleep paralysis. And he wrote, "The devil lay upon her and held her down." Okay, well, how do you know? Were you there? I mean, you can't just, is this what she said?
Yeah.
From Mexico comes reports of people who have said that sleep paralysis feel like a dead body climbed on top of me. That one
Ew.
made me laugh. Like, what? But do dead bodies climb? And I'm not making fun of these cultures. I'm making fun of these reports because
Yeah.
this isn't enough. I need more than this, than these reports. And then in China, sleep paralysis. This is the best one. Has been labeled ghost oppression. I don't even know what to do with that one. Like, who is the ghost being oppressed, or is the ghost the oppressor? I don't get it.
Oh, the
So,
ghost is the oppressor. I
I
mean,
mean,
like literally, right? Like uh,
right.
pressing down on something, holding it down.
All right. So, yeah, as these reports illustrate, like sleep paralysis can be fucking terrifying, you
Mm.
know? I mean, what are some of the things that people feel? They feel trapped. They feel, they typically sense the presence of a malevolent intruder in the room. They feel that pressure on the chest. They hear ominous voices, and then they can feeling, a lot of people have reported feelings of being touched while the covers are snatched off,
Hmm.
all under, these horrific experience of, sleep paralysis. Now, who knows if they're real or hallucinations, but regardless, that's not a restful sleep, if you ask
No,
me.
definitely not.
Right. Um, all right. So I want to talk about sleep paralysis and the benefits of it, because it can open the door to some really cool altered states.
Okay.
Okay, so first, lucid dreaming, that's when you consciously manipulate your dreams and interact at will. Right? We talked about lucid dreaming a couple times.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, Out of body experiences. Now, this is usually an unplanned event, okay, in which your consciousness sort of floats outside of yourself to see
Hmm.
your body from another perspective. Typically, people, that are eh, having surgery or whatever in the hospital, right?
Yes, I've heard of those a lot. Hmm.
Yeah. Now, um, OBEs, or at least the sensation of an OBE, they're largely recognized within the medical community, and they have been the subject of many studies. There's so many studies out there about out of body experiences. So, medical practitioners, they are like, okay, yeah, that's a real thing, because their clients or their patients afterwards are like, yeah, I saw you doing this, and this was playing on the radio, and the doctors are like, how? There's no way
Y-
you could have known that.
yes, yeah, I love those stories.
Yeah, OBEs are very, very cool. There's so much out there. Rabbit hole, right? Like I was like, okay, you can't stay focused. And then the last, altered state that's literally one of my favorites we talked about earlier, astral projection, right?
Mhm,
Now, okay, so here's the thing: astral projection, which is kind of the same as an OBE, it's
mhm.
largely considered to be a spiritual practice versus a medical phenomenon. Why?
Uh-huh.
Because but it's also called astral travel, and it's an intentional out of body experience where your soul or consciousness, right? And that's also like our astral body, for lack of a
Yes.
better term. It separates from the physical body and is legitimately capable of visiting other realms or different areas of the earth without the body physically going there, right? And so, what's really cool is that those, as you well know, who master the astral state can also perform energy work on themselves or others during this. They can teach, learn pretty much anything that they can do in the physical state, they can do in the astral state.
Mm.
So I know you travel and work in the astral realm quite often. So tell us about it. Tell us about your experiences.
I don't really like to do
You just are like, I want to get paid for this shit.
and nobody asked me. This is not a booked session. So
Right.
no, did I tell you this? So the other day I was out with some friends, and one of the girls in the group was talking about how she's had this thing visiting her, and we're just giving her tips on how to, how to tell it to fuck off, basically.
This is which is information taken directly from your mother.
Yes, and it works. It totally works. So, we're telling her that, and also the things she can do to ground herself, to declare her space sovereign. She can, all the different things, um calling out like the four corners of your room, and like
Right.
you could do like bits of Epsom salt, or you can take an Epsom salt bath to ground yourself. So we're just like giving her tips, and she's just kind of looking at us, kind of like,
Like you're
I
nuts.
don't, I don't know. Like, I think she's just unsure.
Uh,
And then that whole night, I dreamt that I was giving her limpias, that I'm like cleaning her with a feather fan and stuff. And I wake up in the morning, I'm like, hey, I I didn't sign up for this.
right?
She didn't book a session with
Mm-mm. No, I'd send her a bill, PayPal invoice.
me. Here's a bill for your limpias.
Pay up. Okay, so segue or tangent. Limpia. Isn't that an egg treatment?
There are several ways to do limpias.
So it's
There
like an overall statement word, like Band Aid.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All
You
right.
so you can do an egg limpia. You can just do like a sweeping limpia, which is that's what I was doing in my dream, or whatever state I was in. You
You were astral traveling.
you can also create baths for them, like herbal baths, and have them take a bath. You can do a smoke cleanse. That's a limpia too. So yeah, there's lots of methods to do it.
Okay, have you ever seen Olympia performed where the egg turned bloody?
Uh, no, no, I haven't. I mean, I've seen, because it's normal for sometimes for some eggs to have like a little strip of blood in them.
Right.
I don't know.
Which those go right down the drain because I'm not cooking that shit. Mm-mm.
I've seen that, but not like a whole like really bad egg. I grew up though. That's like my mom always used to give us egg limpias like growing up
Mhm.
all the time.
Yeah. So it's more of a maybe. Do you think the bloody or the black eggs are more of a myth or legend?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say until maybe one day I see one or someone shows me one or something.
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, I it could happen, because it could have been, like, again, like trying to find the logical answer to it. It could have been a fertilized egg that had, like the chick hadn't really formed yet, but there's like blood and stuff going on in there. I don't know.
Right. That's science, bitch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just needed to know if that was something that is, like you say, oh yeah, there's documented cases throughout history of this happening all the time, or if it's just been sort of, you know, um, made into this thing for like movies and TV and stuff like that.
But usually when you see stuff in movies, it's grounded in some kind of truth, or
Right.
at least somebody's story
Right.
somewhere.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the difference between astral travel and astral projection? There are differences.
Okay.
So, travel has been around since ancient times through various cultures and religions, but was introduced to the Western world in around like the 1800s. All right, now travel can occur without realizing that it's happening. Now, astral projection, on the other hand, is intentional. And that's where the subtle body travels outside of the physical body at the whim of the individual. So, learning how to project and travel, while they are basically the same thing in theory, one is intentional and one is just sort of, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what you've been doing at night, is traveling and helping people when you'd rather be sleeping or you want some payment. I want some
All I'm saying is,
cash.
if I'm going to lose some sleep,
Right. Oh, I know. Exactly.
I like my sleep.
So after it's all said and done, it's my opinion. Okay, now, after all of this and what I've thought, and I've thought this my whole entire life, but
Hmm.
you know, my scientific deduction is, it's my opinion that sleep paralysis is a result of just a simple bumpy re-entry when the soul returns from the astral travel and or projection. That's what
Me
sleep
too.
paralysis is.
Me
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Because I've been able to travel since I was a little girl. Okay. I inherited, quote unquote, inherited this ability from my grandmother,
Hmm.
Dolores, and my uncle Xavier. And my uncle Xavier, after he passed, I found some of his writings, and my uncle actually read his twin, read it at his funeral, where he would write about astral travel. He
Wow.
was an artist, a guitarist, and a
Yeah.
musician, and just really, really creative and amazing, and bigger than life. But I would experience sleep paralysis and the feeling of being held down by an
Hmm.
unseen force.
Hmm.
I would experience it a lot. And the thing is that consciously I knew what it was. I did, even at a young age. I'm like, fucking astral travel, you know, but I wasn't able to remember my travels, and I wasn't really getting
Oh.
any benefit from this experience.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I told my guides, no fucking more. I'm done. No
Hmm.
more astral traveling because the reentry is fucking scary. And I legitimately felt like I was being held down by an oppressive force. And so I would also have this was the scariest part. I would have this vivid sense of like a being, or quote unquote demon or succubus, incubus, whatever, sort of
Hmm.
lurking in the bedroom doorway. Now I know demons are not something that's in my knowledge base. They're not something that I experience. I don't
Hmm.
experience them. That's my experience. But ever since I put the kibosh on astral travel and I said that to spirit 5 or 6 years ago, I have not had one single instance of sleep paralysis until just recently. And then so I opened up my Akashic record and I'm like, why are you back?
Hmm.
Why are they back? And
Hmm.
basically, my guides are like, yeah, it's time to learn to master intentional
Mm.
travel and reentry because there's shit to do, apparently. So that's on
Get
my
work.
list of things to learn how to do, is really do it. So,
Yeah. Um, so I believe absolutely the same thing. Like, whenever somebody says, like, I've had sleep paralysis, I've had this, I always explain it that way of saying, oh, that just means like your soul wasn't back in its body yet.
yep.
You just
Yeah.
woke up a little too early.
Yep.
That was always been my explanation. But the thing about out of body experience, is that I think that that's actual proof of our consciousness and the fact that
Absolutely.
it exists outside of our body. Like, our body doesn't actually hold all of our consciousness. And if you want proof, there's your proof: out
Yep.
of body experiences.
Yes. Yes. And it's very interesting because, some of the most, I don't know, titled and educated, medical professionals will say no, and they'll try to explain it away with some nonsense
Mm-mm.
about memories or remembering or something like that,
Yeah.
and then and other medical professionals are like, no, there's no way.
Yep.
I have the anesthesiologist here that's like, no, she was gone, she was under.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's very interesting, but yeah, we'll have to do an episode on OBEs and talk about all the really cool
Stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
stories that are out there and the science behind it and stuff.
So, what would you say for someone who is experiencing astral travel and maybe some sleep paralysis and they don't want to?
Oh, well, you can do exactly what I did and just say no, no. I mean, but you have to actually have a conversation with your spirit guides and say, okay,
Okay.
guys, here's the thing. Gather round, get your coffee, and sit down because we're going to have a talk. And that's exactly what I did. I said, I don't want to do this. It's scary. Put a pin in it. It's not necessary for my growth forward right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. So don't be, and it stopped.
Okay.
Which is sort of the same concept as when spirits are in your house, right? Get the fuck out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, stop. It's intention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, there are some crystals that can help with astral travel, though, if you are somebody who wants to learn it, right?
Okay.
So I will name a few here, but look for a post on Insta where I will share a larger list of gemstones and how they specifically help with astral travel. There was so much there. I really, really, really love that. All right, so there's clear quartz, which can help open doorways to the divine. So doorways to your higher self and your higher power, knowing. Carnelian, this one helps sort of invoke that warrior spirit within you, right? Your power center, your sacral chakra, orange.
Mm.
Hematite is really good for grounding and strengthening the connection between spirit and body. So that re-entering can be a little more seamless.
Okay.
Labradorite, again, for seamless journeys into the unknown, because Labradorite works with our third eye and really helps us. Getting knowledge, gaining knowledge, knowing, right? It's that inner
Mm-hmm.
knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Angelite is really good for positive vibrations and connecting with your guardians and all of the other entities on the other side, or beings, I should say. So
Okay.
Angelite's going to keep your vibration high, and you're not going to interact with anything scary.
Okay.
Black obsidian is really good for using a compass in the dream world. So that one was really interesting, and I'll get into a little bit more in that one. And then black tourmaline is, of course, that's what keeps us, quote unquote, protected. Now, I don't really subscribe to stones as magic beans and that can protect you. You know that that's just not how I roll.
Yeah.
But tourmaline, anytime anybody is looking for any sort of protective energy,
Yes.
tourmaline is one that I do recommend, and I subscribe that it does actually get that vibe up there so high that those lower energies can't connect.
So, in order to use these, and because we're talking about sleep, and I'm
Mhm.
not gonna like, I don't like wearing jewelry while I sleep.
Right? No.
So,
Yeah.
would this be like something I put under my pillow, or is it enough to just have it like at my bedside?
Yeah, bedside pillow. The other day, that piece of shungite that I showed you,
Mm-hmm.
the black kyanite. Well, those
Yeah.
those aren't really cuddly stones. They'll stab you in the
No,
face and kill you.
they're sharp.
They're sharp, and yeah. Well, I went to bed the other night and I put that on my third eye to meditate. So I didn't go to bed to sleep. I went to meditate, right? Well,
Uh-huh.
of course I fell asleep because I don't care who you are. If you fucking get in bed to meditate, you're gonna fall asleep.
If you're laying down, yes.
You're gonna fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wake up the next day and I completely forgot. And then when I go to make the bed, there's that piece of shungite. I had slept on it. Like my body was on it. I'm like, how did that thing not pierce my heart? Right? Or whatever. It's like this weapon in my bed. So definitely it's probably better to put them on your bedside,
Okay.
or under your pillow where they can't, try to kill you. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is learning to travel, because honestly, this episode just sort of touches on astral travel and
Mhm.
how it relates to myth and lore and legend and sleep paralysis. We could do a
Yeah.
whole other episode on astral travel, which would be really, it's a great idea. But if you want to learn how to travel, I would suggest you begin with a guided meditations for astral travel, someplace easy and free like YouTube. Okay. Just the biggest thing is that you need to remain calm and let go of any attachment to the outcome. This is a process that you have to learn. And some people can do this naturally, but you have to learn how to manage it in order to eliminate that sleep paralysis. Why?
Hmm.
This is what my guides told me when I said, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Well, it's time for you to learn to master." Um, and then not holding any expectation that you have to travel, because then you're not relaxed. And then, of course, that's the opposite of the state that you want to be in. So,
Hmm.
there's so much more to that, which, again, this isn't the episode to cover that. But I definitely, if you learn how to travel or you are an expert traveler, and you've done it quite often, please reach out to us at esotericspodcast@gmail.com and let us know, or share your stories in the Wokakashic group.
Yeah, my dad had an astral travel story.
Did he?
He Yeah, he taught himself how to astral travel out of a book, but he didn't even call it that. I mean, I don't remember what he called it exactly, but he said he picked up this book and it taught him how to do it, and so he practiced a little bit. But then one day, so he because he'd have to go somewhere, to be alone to do it, and he couldn't do it at home because they would, his parents would see him. I think he was supposed to be working. I don't know, but he went to a barn, one of the barns, and went up on the top part so nobody could see him. And he laid down and he astral traveled, and he was gone for what he thought was just a few minutes. But when he woke up, it was dark because this was like in the
Wow.
morning when he did it. And then he woke up, it was dark, and he'd been gone for hours, and they were looking for him. And
Oh.
yeah, and he kind of freaked out because he didn't realize how long he'd been gone,
Hmm.
and he felt like couldn't get back to his
Yeah.
body. Like he'd gone so far that he had trouble getting back. So
Right.
then he said after that he never did it again
Never
because
did it again.
it
Right.
spooked him. Hmm.
Yeah, he just needed to learn how to master it. So we can't not. There are a lot of stories out there, fear-based, fear-mongering
Hmm.
things that I'm just going to say are not true.
Hmm.
We are attached to our physical bodies by what's called the etheric cord. This
Hmm.
is a cord that cannot be broken. It only breaks at death,
Hmm.
during the death process, the returning home process. So there is no way. That you can't return to your body. Now,
Yeah.
physically, or medically, I'm sure there's a lot of, theories that could support the fact that, you can't, but whatever, right?
Hmm.
We're talking about, if people are like, I don't want to try it because what if I can't return? You
No.
absolutely can return.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes back to not having that fear and
Mhm.
having the proper preparation for it. And
Yeah.
then obviously that book should have told him, like, hey, don't be afraid, like you can do this, or there's nothing to be afraid
Right.
of. But I don't know if he didn't get that far or
Right.
what it was.
He read the first chapter. He's like, I'm going to do this.
Right, which is sometimes what we do when we're kids, like, we're just kids and we're just like,
Right.
I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go for it." Like, I know I've told you, like, I also picked up a book at a library when I was a kid, and it taught me how to gather energy,
Yeah.
and I didn't read the whole book. I just, like, read, like, the first few chapters, so I never completed the book. I didn't really know how to do the entire thing that I'm sure was gonna teach me a lot more. I was just, like,
Mhm.
eager to get started and get
Right.
going, and I was like, "Oh, let's do this." So, yeah.
Mhm. And then once you had the energy, what do you do with it once you have it, right? Did you cover that in the book?
I didn't get further than, like,
Right.
"Oh, you can use it to, like, put it on your body and, like, cure a headache,"
Oh.
and that, yeah, but I'm sure there's more you could do with it. We just
Mhm.
didn't get any further than that.
Oh, have you used that knowledge or that technique throughout the years?
Yeah, I used it with Reiki.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice. See?
it's very
So
useful.
it was there. I mean, there are no coincidences, and you learn something we learn what we need to learn, that sort of thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
um, go through read the whole book, complete the course,
Yes.
start to finish so that you are fully aware of what, yeah, definitely. I'm very interested in hearing from people who are polished, professional, knowledgeable
Hmm.
astral travelers, just to see, hey, what sort of things have you done or can you do?
Yeah, I want to know too.
So there you go. That's all I have on, um, astral travel and sleep paralysis and the legend and the lore of the succubi.
Oh, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun topic to get into. I'm excited. I'm excited we were able to do that.
It's interesting too how in medieval times or just in throughout history where when people couldn't explain things, they didn't have an understanding of medical issues, how they just everything was just like demons or ghosts.
They just made shit up. They still do that now. They'll just make shit up.
Yeah. Or that like you called it upon yourself because you're a sinner.
Mhm.
Yeah, or you just blame it on astrology and all that. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. Um and I mean, it's really interesting to go back and look at those and then see how they rationalize things,
Mhm.
like with sleep paralysis saying that it's a demon that's holding you down instead of a horny priest who has no business, getting in your bed, but
Yeah.
that's part of evolution and all that stuff. But yeah, I love getting into stuff like that, like, oh, origins, word origins, myth and lore origins are super super interesting. So
Mhm.
I wonder if there's a podcast out there called Origins.
Probably
I'd want
is. I
to.
mean, I know there's just a lot of history podcasts out there
Hmm.
too. That's always cool.
Yeah, there's one called Ologies. I've listened to a couple episodes of those. Very cool, but I want one called Origins.
Oh, so I looked up this thing real quick, and it was like six crazy medical beliefs from the days of yore.
Oh yeah, what are they?
So they believe that the Black Death was caused by bad air.
Well,
That if you had hiccups, it was because of elves.
elves.
Yes. Yeah. In medieval times, elves were to blame for many of life's unpleasantries. Knots in your hair, also known as elf locks, nightmares, elves, and whatever water elf disease is, that's also caused by elves. That's a thing. Um, oh, and then sleep paralysis is caused by demons. There you
Yep.
go. Sneeze me deadly. So yeah, well, we know that. That's why we say bless you is
Bless you.
because
Yep.
because they thought that people
So,
were
what
gonna
did
die.
people think that if people sneeze, then they're.
That they were probably carrying the Black Death.
Oh, you know what? Listen, between Black Death, Black Air, Black Bad Air, I don't appreciate the connotation that black is bad. I have my
Yeah,
black shirt on today, and it's my favorite shirt. I don't appreciate this shit.
that's right. That's racist. Yes.
Racist, his old ancient people.
I mean, it's not wrong. Having tuberculosis meant that you were a vampire. That's fun.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's a good one. I like that.
the case of the wandering womb, that the ancient Greeks believed that a woman's womb spontaneously wandered around her abdominal cavity, colliding with other organs, causing headaches, sluggishness, weakness, and vertigo. Okay.
Okay, what? Say that again. Say it again.
That their uterus basically wandered around in her abdominal cavity, colliding with other organs and causing headaches, sluggishness, weakness, and vertigo.
So, but is there a name for that
It,
dilemma?
and that's just the wandering
The
womb. It was
wandering womb.
the ancient Greeks were the ones that believed it, and then in the 1500s, that was replaced by that the womb was a source of a woman's irrationality, and by the 19th century, hysteria over female hysteria was rampant. Cures included hypnosis, vibrating devices,
Well, that's probably where they came from. Everything comes from the
uh,
Greek.
jets of water blasted at the abdomen, and extreme cases, hysterectomies. Great. So that sounds to me like that continues, when assholes who are saying like, "Oh, women can't be president; they're too emotional. Like she's gonna blow up the world if she's on her period and all that shit." That seems it comes from stupid ass medieval beliefs.
Patriarchy, they were so medieval. Patriarchy's nothing but medieval. Yeah. Hey, well, there's another potential topic to talk about all the bullshit and nonsense from grounded in ancient times, which is
Hmm.
pretty much most
Oh,
of
there's
it.
a lot of that. All
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, guys, please share and review. Thank you for hanging out with us today. Um, and if you find this episode to be fun and informative, please sharing those episode links with your friends and family and your social networks is really key to the success of the Esoterics podcast. So help us get the word out and help us grow our audience. And this also goes for reviews on Apple and all over the socials.
You can find us under all the socials under Esoterics Podcast. And don't forget to join our Facebook group on the Woke Akashic so you can stay up to date with all our upcoming events and intuitive development classes. Thank you all for sharing space with us today. Stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again next week when we talk about the story of Maria Sabina.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.